of our knowledge and inspiration from the outside world, both in Europe, both internationally. So this is also part of this developments in society, so both on the society side, but also the technological side. And to understand how we operate as a network organization, I included this sheet of the things we are doing. So our agency, we're kind of we're an integrated agency. The Netherlands is a centralized country, so it's completely different from Switzerland. But we started as a land registry cadastral survey agency, also responsible for the National Geodetic Reference Network. And before the Second World War, we started in land consolidation. But then 10 years ago, we also became responsible for the mapping in the Netherlands, and then cables and pipelines came in. And what we have seen growing, and that's all across Europe, I guess, is all our roles in key registers and information nodes and national spatial data infrastructures, or even European spatial data infrastructures. And of course, most people now know us in the Netherlands for the information services we provide. That's basically what we deliver, and these are the fields we're working in. So I thought, what's now, if you look at the network society, it's always, I mean, strategy is about what you want to do, but also how you want to get there. And if you don't know where you're starting from, I mean, you might be interested, you might be defining where you want to go, but you also have to take your path towards that. So I thought it would be nice to present you the timeline or the time travel we have made in the past years, and sometimes it gives you an indication how society will change and how the cadastre will change and how our position in this network society will change. So I thought, how's the best way to illustrate that? So I thought I'd look at the number of companies which in a sense are very successful, because probably if you look at other parties, maybe not even in our field, they will show you how society will change, and it gives you an indication where it moves. So I thought I'd look at IKEA, which is the Swedish firm. I mean, they're a very big multinational, and probably everyone here in the room knows IKEA. So I thought, is there something visible if you look at IKEA where you can see the difference? I mean, over the years, and I took a timeline. I started in 1995. That's the year we became basically independent, and then every 10 years I try to follow it. And now the funny thing is, if you look at IKEA, I use their catalogs. Actually, the left one is 1995, 2005, 2015. If you look, you don't see any change at all. I mean, we've been discussing now change for more than one day, and basically what you see no change at all. And IKEA is a quite modern, private, and very successful private company. And they didn't show any catalogs for the next 10 years, but that's one. And then I thought I'd look at another one, the automotive industry, which as an industry changed, but if you look at, this is the Volkswagen Golf, and then I was for the model of 95, 2005, 2015. I think if you're from another planet, you would say they're still the same. So we've been discussing change for hours now, and then if you look at the big companies, the successful companies, today on the outside part, there's not that much change. But with this introduction, I'll take you with me in our time travel through the last 20 years, and I'll try to predict what's happening in 2025. But to know what your destination is, like I said, you have to know where you started. And then we go back to 1995. We didn't feel it like that, but then if you look at from today's point of view, life was very simple. We were a cadastral and land registry agency, and we did land consolidation, and primarily what we did, we had arrangement with our partner, professional partners, on how to deal with our processes. And it was both the notaries, it was the municipalities, which are our main, say, participants in the public sector, and it was with the agency for land and water management, and we had arrangements on the primary processes we had. And at that time we thought this was complicated, but actually life was very simple in hindsight. So that was 1995. Then I get to 2005, next 10 years, and what you see then, is because we started to automate processes, is that if you look in our real estate, in the real estate market, we had introduced by then Cadastre Online. We did our first steps in electronic conveyancing. And then, for instance, if you look now at the line of the notaries, I've used in the previous picture, you only saw dotted lines, but there we really integrated our processes. So the fixed lines are integrated processes, but what you see is that you directly interact also in the real estate market already with citizens, real estate agents, and the financial sector. In that time, we also took over, or the National Mapping Agency came from the Department of Defense to our agency, so there you have lines, you have other lines, the municipalities which started to create the national base map, or the large-scale base map of the Netherlands. And what we saw already was this move towards public services, so we teamed up with the other agencies, also in the social sector, the business register, how to work, and what's also started to grow was e-government, so this public services initiative. So that's 10 years ago, and where are we now? And then you see the network expanding, and then we're now in the middle in the Netherlands of this shift from what I call e-government, which is basically a technical issue. I mean, and it looks to your working processes to an information government, so that's a shift we're currently in. What we have created in the meantime are what I would call information nodes, and there are cable and pipelines, there are on geo information. It's up to the customer what they need and what they pick. So that's, and what we have really finalized now is many notaries are on that, is a full chain integration on electronic conveyancing with notaries. But what you see is that the network grows. We have automatic links now with the cable and pipeline sector, with the notaries, and within the government, we're really, working processes really linked. I mean, it's not any humans anymore, it's automatic. So you see the network growing. And if you look at this is, I mean, how our world looks today, and I thought what's going to happen if I look in the next 10 years, and then probably it's an educated guess, but that's enough. And then it probably looks like this, and what you'll see happening then is that people will participate themselves. I mean, I call it do-it-yourself survey, but you can also call it crowdsourcing. What you see is that the processes are more and more cradle to cradle, so it's a process that matters, and not that much the position of the agency, but it's end-to-end processes. We probably, I mean, there's a lot of discussion now about big data in society, and it won't go away. It will be here, but we think also what we are very good at in our field is linked data. So that will grow, and what we'll see is that we'll get more embedded into Europe at least, maybe even globally, but Europe. And then what you see now is, I mean, we see more lines, but also much more processes are integrated really on the lower level. I mean, the end user doesn't see it, but it's there. But now the nice part of this, or maybe frightening part of this picture, if you look at 2025, I mean, this is the first picture. If we wouldn't function properly, I mean, if we would fail to meet our objectives, I mean, there are now so many lines that if we don't do the work, there are now ways for, you can always get to another point in the network without the need of us. And this is what will happen if we don't do our work properly. And of course, that's not our objective to become obsolete. That's not the point. But this is what could happen. And you see the network is complicated and it's probably not complete, but this is how we see the future will develop. But then this is how the network evolves, but then I want to stress some, say, developments in society which have been presented yesterday and this morning already. Because, I mean, how come that we are so connected? That's basically, this has been in the presentations before. I mean, we never in history have seen such a level of connectivity, and it will go on and go on and go on. So everyone in this room already is 3.5 connected devices. axis, right? And so this connectivity will grow and grow. And then if you have this connectivity and you look at network societies, basically what we saw yesterday in the presentations is that what you see growing is participation or even being in the lead by the end users or the ones having the issues at hand. So that would say that we moved from a centralized organization, and we, like Kadaster, having agencies, we were centralized agencies, we moved to a completely decentralized society. So you have kind of debate now going on, are we going to be a decentralized society or a centralized society? If we look at it, I mean, what we'll end up with is that we have decentralization very much at the user level and the end user level and the responsibility issue, but you still need a level of centralization. You already see it in the private sector, I mean with Facebook or whatever you use, I mean it's you provide the content, but you still need the centralized structure of Facebook to share your ideas worldwide. So what you will see is that you'll see both decentralization and you'll see some centralization. And one of the discussions, of course, we have now in societies, should we have this centralization be done by the American private companies, or how do we act ourselves as public agencies or within Europe to organize the centralization, and that's through standards normalization and share infrastructures, which we all will share. So it's not as simple, it's not the one or the other, it's the world of both. And if you look at network societies, it's what will happen is it's not, I mean, we came from the point where we had a position vested in law and said Kadaster should do this or that. I think in the future, I mean, our reputation and role will depend basically on what we contribute to society. It's not that it's in the law that the Kadaster should do this or that, but society will look at us, what's the use of the Kadaster for us? And then if you look at this network society, we always have been an authority, but basically we have an authority by kind of law. And I think what will happen in network society, the society will judge us how much do we contribute to the network, and that will give us authority. If we provide useful things, that will be very helpful. What has been in the presentations yesterday already, I mean, what we want is that what's very important in network society is trust, because your information is flowing through the whole system, but it's not anymore based on a legal position, but the trust is based, do the network partners trust each other, and how do they participate, and how do you contribute again to the network? And what will change is when you're at a legal position, I mean, you have quite a lot of top-down communication, but what you really have to change is to dialogue with your partners, because that gives you a position in the network. So I mean, the words authority, trust, and dialogue, I mean, you have to redefine them in this network society to be successful, and if you do that properly, we think you have a very good position. And then if you look at our type of agencies, I think we'll sometimes have a role in the central part, in the decentral part, sometimes in the shared role. But then there are still a number of developments which we have to take into account, because this is how we look to network society. What we see happening at the same time, I mean, and that's worldwide, but also now happening again in Europe, we see this trend to urbanization. And I mean, probably when I would have said 1991, this is Dubai, probably some people had to look up on the map where it was, but this is how the city of Dubai develops. The 2012 picture is the same street, but the other way around. And what you see now, I mean, it's in the middle of the desert that in Dubai. They're already, these pictures of 2025 are already on the web, so I couldn't show them for IKEA and Volkswagen, but in Dubai they're already thinking about it. But that means, because this, I mean, Victor is also called the smart cities. I mean, this organization goes on, and it's very close to network societies, because you have very many functions in parallel on a small piece of land. So that's one of the big developments we see. What we see at the Cadastre land registry level, I mean, we came from a world where we registered private rights, public rights. It was very much focused on property. What we see now in cities, and this has to do with this organization, is that more and more people share property or even share functions. And what we also see is that because living in cities becomes horrendously expensive, is that for some people what they want to have secure use of a place where they can stay, but use becomes more important in many instances than the property itself. So if you look at cadastres, I mean, we always were very much on the property side. We are not that much used to sharing things. I mean, the closest we can get is registering timeshare apartments, which is already difficult for us, but society needs to use. And what you see is that society, they want the kind of, people want the kind of security of that they, when they enter a key in a room, that they can enter and sleep there, but it has more to do with use than with the property itself. So that will affect us also. And this has been discussed widely already yesterday in the session on crowdsourcing. I mean, this has happened. I mean, everyone is used to information, but it's already difficult to explain and use why they can't provide it. So if I look at the Kadaster of tomorrow, I think it's inevitable, or to be successful, is that it will be network-oriented. And how we should operate is that we're a partner in the information network of this information society. And it's a different role. It's not that you're the agency because that's law. You're a partner in a network. I think we should be much more user-centered. So it's not the past that is dominant, but it's user-centered. So that means that we have to work with users, and we come from a work where we work for users, and that will change. And if we don't do it, the users will find their own way. I think we have to rethink, and it's not only in the developing countries, but also here in Europe, what is fit for purpose for cadasters in our age. And I think that the big shift will be, it's not only rights, but it's also use. So that's for also in our societies we have to change. And if we want to be authoritative, which I mean, in our strategy we want, is that we have to base our contribution. We have to participate in a network. We have to contribute to the network. We have to be in dialogue with the network. And if we do all this, our role in society will provide access to trust. And it's very close to legal security, but it's something different. And that's what we think where our future lies. And my last sheet is a bit dedicated to our Swiss colleagues, because if we are all this, what I all wish you is that you're in the future are a versatile, adaptable, and multi-purpose Kadaster. And that's what I wanted to share with you on how we think the future will develop in our position in our network. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin. By the way, probably a lot of you don't realize Martin is, we consider him Swiss as well. He was born Swiss, he speaks Swiss, German, he speaks French. So we don't only consider you as a house. Thanks for your contribution. Our next meeting